movie opens in New York City, where the Bowery King, Lawrence Fishburne, has taken in John Wick, Keanu Reeves, and his dog as refugees. BK enters the room and asks John if he's prepared to pursue the high table as he's beating a board till his knuckles bleed. John only responds, "Yeah." In Morocco, John rides a horse and pursues guys working for the Elder, George Georgiou. After killing those men, John goes to the Elder and demands his ring, but the Elder informs John that the ring is no longer there. The Elder is subsequently put to death by John before he leaves. The Harbinger, Clancy Brown, who was dispatched by the High Table, summons Winston, Ian McShane, and Sharon, Lance Reddick, to meet the Marquis de Gramont, Bill Skarsgård, back in New York. They now know that the Elder was put to death, and the Marquis chastises Winston for not killing John. The Marquis condemns and blows up the New York Continental as a result. Winston is declared to be out of the church, and to make matters worse, the Marquis shoots Sharon in the chest. Winston says it should have been him, and remains at his friend's side until he passes away. Kane, Donnie Yen, a blind assassin, is in Paris, watching his daughter, Mia, Amy Kwan, play the violin in the park. The Marquis instructs Kane to pursue John. Although Kane claims to be retired, the Marquis threatens Mia's life if Kane defies the High Table's directives. Shimazu Koji, Hiroyuki Sanada, whose daughter Akira, Rina Sawayama, works as the concierge at the Osaka Continental, is an old friend of John's. Although Akira doesn't trust John being there, Koji meets with John on the roof and agrees to provide him with refuge in secret. The Marquis' right-hand man, Chidi, Marco Zaror, soon shows there with his killing squad to try to entice John away. Koji's own men arrive and engage the High Table killers by shooting arrows in the dark. John pulls his revolver and begins to do what he does best as soon as the hitmen reach the roof. Kane shows there and starts his own corpse count as Koji's guards manage to repel the most of the High Table hitmen. He sets up traps to enable him hear where his targets are moving before using his sword and gun to murder the men. Akira enters the conflict and puts some of Chidi's men to death, but she is shot and suffers injuries as a result, while he continues to battle additional men, including dispatching a few with a pair of nunchucks. John assists her and Koji in leaving. Kane discovers him, and even though they still consider each other to be old friends, he pursues John despite his reluctance to do so in order to protect Mia. Before John is able to escape, John and Kane engage into a brief altercation. A tracker named Mr. Nobody, Shamir Anderson, and his German shepherd are there during the gunfights, and he manages to kill some of the assailants pursuing John. He wants the contract on John's head as well, but he is presently assisting John since he feels the current hit, $20 million, is insufficient. Koji and Akira stumble into Kane as they are leaving. He and Koji have been friends for a long time, but Koji won't let Kane pursue John. So they start a sword fight. When it seems like Koji will be allowed to leave, he continues to struggle until Kane strikes him in the head. Akira hugs her father's body as he passes away and tries to slay Kane with his sword, but he warns her not to do so should she meet the same fate as her father and promises to see her again. Akira seeks up John at the railway station and accuses him of being responsible for her father's passing. He is warned by her to murder Kane or else. Winston meets Bowery King because they both understand that the fact that they are still close to John makes them targets. The Harbinger confronts the Marquis about the needless carnage at the Osaka Continental, but the Marquis insists that it is essential to murder John Wick, in addition to dismantling the notion that he is an untouchable and unkillable person. Mr. Nobody then pays a visit to the Marquis and wants a $23 million contract to assassinate John. In response, the Marquis impales his hand and forces him to decide between taking the knife out and pulling his hand out to examine his goals. The Marquis grants Mr. Nobody's request as he jerks his hand away, slashing his fingers. At Sharon's grave, John runs into Winston and expresses his sorrow for his friend's passing. Though it is widely thought that high-table duel were simply fables, Winston wants to get revenge on the Marquis and informs John that in order to be released from the high table, he must challenge the Marquis to a duel. Only John's family can help him succeed, but the Ruscaroma tore his connection with them and cut off assistance. John decides to look for them, as there is no other option. When John arrives to the Ruscaroma in Berlin, the priest greets him with a shotgun blast before tying him up and placing a noose around his neck. He is greeted by Katya, his adopted sister, who is upset with him since he killed the elder, which caused the Marquis to order the assassination of Pyotr, who would have supported John in the battle. Katya is played by Natalia Tina. When John offers to help Katya make amends, she instructs him to pursue Killer, Scott Atkins, a member of the German High Table who is responsible for her father's murder. After being located, John visits Killer's nightclub where Kane and Mr. Nobody are also present. Killer plays cards with the three, cheating while doing so, and then orders his soldiers to pursue the three assassins. While John pursues Killer throughout the club among unaware clubgoers, Kane and Nobody manage to hold their own against the thugs. Along with Nobody's dog, Killer utilizes his power and weight against John, while John battles him, slicing Killer's throat with a card in the process. John is pursued by Killer's soldiers, who are fatally wounded. Killer attempts to stop John by pushing him off a balcony, but it is ineffective. Killer is ultimately cornered by John, who then throws him down a flight of stairs, killing him as he hits the ground headfirst. In order to prove Killer's demise, John takes one of his gold teeth and presents it to Katya. She responds favorably and assists John during the ceremony where he receives the family crest branding and backing for the duel. The official John challenge paper is brought by Winston to the Marquis. Winston explains that even when the Marquis tries to back out, he is still obligated to follow the High Table's traditions. Additionally, Winston asks that if John wins, he would restore his management to the Continental, remove the condemnation, and end his excommunication. Winston is nonetheless reminded by the Marquis that as he will be John's second, he too will pass away if John does. The Harbinger rule over them, as John arrives to sit down with the Marquis to negotiate the terms of the duel. In dawn, they will meet in Paris Sacré-Cœur and engage in a gun duel. It will constitute a forfeiture and grounds for execution if any of them fails to appear by the deadline. Kane will be the Marquis's second child, and if he can murder John, he'll release both him and his daughter. John visits a church and takes a seat to honor Helen, Bridget Moynihan. He finds Kane there, who welcomes him and tells him about Mia and what he stands to lose. Later, when John meets Winston and Bowery King, the latter presents him with a new gun and bulletproof suit. The Harbinger warns the Marquis of what would transpire if John were to assassinate him at the High Table. The Marquis sends Chidi and his goons after John to make sure he doesn't get to the Sacré-Cœur in time. Additionally, a radio DJ informs any other assassins who are listening that John has a reward on his head for anybody who can murder him before dawn. Numerous assassins pursue John as he makes his way to the Sacré-Cœur. He engages shooters in street combat, even swerving into traffic near the Arc de Triomphe to kill the bad guys or allow them to be run over by vehicles. His whereabouts are tracked by the high table, which prompts further assassins to seek him out. John walks into a room filled with criminals and starts shooting explosive bullets at them. While helping to kill some of the assassins, nobody phones the Marquis and requests a larger reward. In the end, the Marquis accepts a $40 million deal, driving more frantic and tragic hitmen away. When John eventually reaches the Sacred Cower steps, he kills a number of further assailants before Chidi appears and throws him all the way back down the steps. In order to assist John get to the top and murder Chidi's men, Kane appears. Nobody else shows up and starts attacking Chidi for throwing his dog into the street. Although the dog is fine, Chidi is hauled to the ground with John's assistance. The dog bites him in the balls, and nobody shoots him in the head. The dog also urinates on Chidi's face for good measure. Just as the sun rises, John arrives. He and Kane take up their pistols and begin a traditional duel. Both succeed in striking each other twice. Kane shoots John in the stomach during the third round, but John doesn't respond. The Marquis then gives him the go-ahead to pull off the ultimate kill so that he may be the one to dispose of John Wick. Before Winston calls him a conceited jerk and points out that John didn't fire his final bullet, he pulls his gun and points it at John. Before John blows his brains out, the Marquis realizes this, but it's too late. After that, the Harbinger states that John and Kane are no longer subject to the High Table's demands. Before he collapses, John momentarily remembers Helen as he descends the stairs and says her name. John Wick goes out on top, with his gravestone bearing the words "loving husband as per his desire." Winston and Bowery King bury John next to Helen. When BK inquires as to whether John is in heaven or hell, Winston responds, "Who knows?" As the two go, BK keeps watching over John's dog. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this journey. I look forward to creating more exciting content for you in the future. Your support means everything to me.